Dr. Anthony Harper here, blessed to be with Representative Ted Hill from Idaho. Thank you for joining me on this very hot topic about the Idaho flag bill. So, Representative Hill, what happened today regarding that flag bill?
Well, I started working on this bill at the very first week of the session, and we finally got it done today, and the governor signed it into law, and Boise had to follow the law. They followed it immediately and removed the flag, the pride flag in this case, but it had to be, that flagpole had to be, it had to be neutral. No political, religious, or ideological flags were allowed on that third flagpole. The other flagpoles for the American flag, the state flag, and then there's a series of flags that are allowable. And the pride flag had been there in Boise for a decade as a third flag, and it was getting to be a problem, and that's why we addressed it. I thought it was a problem because that flag was becoming a state flag, essentially the same equivalence as the American flag, and I had a problem with that. I really did.
Well, I know that a lot of our evangelical Christian audience would have a problem with that as well. And there are many wonderful churches in the Boise area that I don't know what happened to them. There was a vote, or maybe enough people didn't get out and vote about this issue. But what about some history to this, the gay pride flag issue? And I know there could be some other flag issues, but is the gay pride flag the number one, the concern that got a lot of people's attention?
Well, sir, it did, and this started about 3 years ago. And when it first became an issue, we were doing it in the schools. And the first time it went through, it failed. And I was on the committee, the education committee, and this young transgender got up and said, "I only feel comfortable under this pride flag at school." And then his mother came up after to testify and says, "I don't feel comfortable under the American flag." And I got, I'm a veteran of 37 years, and that upset me significantly. I was furious you'd say that. So the agenda is their nation state flag is the pride flag and not the American flag. It appears to be for some of the most radical ones, the ones the America haters, and they're going to be, they hate America at all costs. It seems like, it feels like, and that's what got my attention. So last year I did the pride flag in the schools, and that passed. And following me, another representative did the flag for downtown in Boise, and basically for all the government flags for the same thing. We shouldn't have any political, religious, or ideological flags in the government sphere because that shows favoritism for any particular agenda, and that's not okay. Well, that passed. Then she refused to follow it, which was a huge deal. We're trying to get the attorney general and everything, and she went around it by calling it it's going to be our city flag now. That's how she got around it. But she ignored the law that we passed and just said, "No, I'm not going to do what you want, and I'm going to keep flying this flag." And honestly, doctor, if that flag, if she had cycled the flag every day with something new each day and put a pride flag up there every once in a while, no one would have said anything. I think it's, yeah, you put the Navy flag up, put the pride flag up, and everyone gets a piece of the action. I think it probably would have been a non-issue, but it was there for 10 years. Nobody else, no other flag was allowed. She put the Donate Life flag up, which, my daughter, we lost our daughter, we donated her organs, so we're a donation family, and I have skin in that game. But I didn't think that's even an appropriate flag because that represents just a very small group. And that was really a controversy, and everyone was that way, and it just got to be old. Why can't we put a Christian flag up? Why can't we put a MAGA flag? Whatever else, it's inconsistent, and I think it was a good move for the schools because teachers were flying pride flags in the classroom, and that's a problem. So it's been across the board. The agenda has, I think it's moved our cultural agenda too far to the left, and it's not just a flag thing. This is a cultural alignment thing. This is like pushing back against this, I call it the Marxist agenda of disruption and division. And we need to pull that back to the center and don't give them any more. Draw a line in the sand. That's what this is. It's not a flag battle. It's a cultural battle. It's a battle for the soul of this country. And this is to pull these cultural issues and don't let it go any farther, because if we allow that, what's the next step? to the left and the radicals.
Well, according to thinking about the next step, though, would be about having LGBTQ week in the public school system. This is taxpayer funded. Has that been addressed as well? Can the public schools really get away with having a gay pride flag at the school? I mean, in their classroom, having an LGBTQ week at the public school?
Well, sir, that's a good question because they cannot. There was a big controversy here in the Boise schools because of my flag bill for the schools. They cannot. They removed them. Then what happened is there's everyone is welcome flag and has all these hands are up. They're all colored hands. It is a co-opted flag by the transgender and the LGBT agenda. It's a Democrat flag, and that was required to be removed by the schools, and there was a big lashback on that. But it was the same thing. They were trying to get around the pride flag with basically the same thing. It was co-opted as strictly a pride symbol with the colors and everything, and they were able to remove that with a lot of controversy. And what you mentioned before, they actually had kids released during the school day to come over and demonstrate on one of these demonstrations, one of these leftist demonstrations. That caused a lot of concern, and we pushed a bill to stop that, and it didn't get through. But that was the same issue. You're not gonna have teachers sanction, hey, we're gonna go ahead and go ahead and do these radical demonstrations against the government on school time. I don't think so. And that's super unpopular, and everyone in the House was pretty fired up about that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Idaho being really kind of a test state for this issue about the flag bill.
It is, and it's there's been a flag bill similar. There was something similar in Boston where they had a third flag poll, and they actually allowed everyone to make inputs in different community and organizations, and they would allow that. But then a Christian organization said, "Hey, we want to put our flag up." They said, no, we're not going to allow that one. Well, the Supreme Court shut that down and shut that flagpole down. So this is similar where it was a one specific agenda run show. And they would say, well, let the people vote for the mayor. And I go, well, wait, that's not the right thing to do in a government space. She is basically pushing an agenda on the rest of the populace, and it should be neutral. The government flagpoles should not be pushing a political agenda. What is she going to put a hammer and sickle flag next time we have a communist in there? What are we going to do? Is Mom Dami in New York going to put a communist flag on the third flagpole? That's what they think. Hey, it's local control. And I go, no, that's not a local control thing we're going to tolerate. And that's kind of where this could gone, because we had this demonstration here not too long ago. I saw 3 communist flags floating around in front of the Capitol, people carrying around. So that's the group that's out there demonstrating against this right now. And it is a revolution. I would say it's a Marxist revolutionary sub entity out there, the Democratic Party. The radicals are revolutionaries. They're not Democrats. They're revolutionaries against America. That's the way I see it. And we're fighting against that radical revolutionary group right now by doing these things. It's important that's why I lean into them hard. This is a hard bill to get into. I took a lot of abuse, a lot of grief, but you got to lean into these things. This is important.
So when did you start, leading a legislative effort regarding the flag bill, and who else was involved?
Well, this particular bill, after last year, which really kind of opened up the spigot, and then this year, I started on the first day of the session. And I was all over the news, and they were interviewing me, and it was, I'm getting all kinds of emails and awful voicemails and all kinds of awful. And it just kind of wallowed back and forth. It got challenged over there in the Senate. They kind of froze it. And we were able to finally press that through. There's a lot of folks helped me with this. Senator Josh Kaiser over in the Senate, he was my compatriot there, did a great job. Real warrior, and I always lean on him when I need something hard. I did a bathroom bill too that was about protecting the most vulnerable in the bathroom, and that's ladies, young girls, and that got crushed over in the Senate. It didn't go any farther. So I've been fighting this battle. I did a bathroom bill 3 years ago for the schools, and I also did the compelled speech bill 2 years ago forced pronouns when people get fired for not recognizing a pronoun for a transgender, which was ridiculous, contrary to First Amendment rights. So I've been this cultural warrior, and they said let Hill do it. He'll take the shots. He'll take the abuse. You have to. It's hard. I'm exhausted by it for sure, but I'm not giving up because I think we're fighting for the soul of this land, and that's why I keep pushing on these things.
Well, in the broader scheme, the issue too is what all these things have in common is an assault in the public sphere, an agenda that putting onto the whole public. I think what is also next. I don't know if you've heard of the challenge issue, but we have calls to prayer in violation. It could be in violation of a public a sound ordinance. What happens if a Christian church wants a call to prayer? And for the cities that, with their sound ordinance, they allow one to have a call to prayer, but they won't let the Christian church have a call to prayer. I wonder if we'll ever have to deal with that in Idaho. Is there anything like that, an assault in the public arena for a call to prayer?
You segued right into what we also did this year. I was part of a group that we did the No Sharia Law bill, and it just passed 2 days ago, signed by the governor. No Sharia law, which is essentially that part of it. No foreign law can be exhibited into the public sphere to override our constitutional rights. So that Sharia law is part of that whole call to prayer, and a lot of that, if you have a entity like Hamtramck, Michigan, where they have those issues, they have Sharia law in that community, and they exert that, and it's unconstitutional. And the states need to lean into it. The only state that's done that is Texas, that I know of so far, and us. There might be possibly Florida. They're usually on top of this. Usually, the best states on this are Florida, Texas, and then Idaho. We've been leading this. We're leading this every time. All these agendas, particularly the Sharia law, all these gender issues, going after the China threat, we're always leading us. The three leading states on these things are Florida, Texas, and Idaho. We're always on it.
Mm-hmm.
We do great. I'm happy for that. And I get to do all those. And I lean into those hard, real hard.
Well, it is so important, I know, for the U.S. Constitution and protecting those religious liberties, about the Constitution. And thank you for your sacrifice on that. So many people, and thank you for your service, the military, and so many others, in defending those freedoms that need to be fought for. A freedom I know isn't free. And back to this issue about the assault on freedoms in the public arena of the larger scale. Do you see anything ending up in the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, over this as it progresses regarding whether it's Sharia law or could be anything else?
Well, that's a really good question. When we did this through the session, officially within the bill itself, we don't say Sharia law. It's no foreign laws or foreign courts in American law. So we never use Sharia law. We never said it. We never mentioned it. And I was told not to, specifically because of the challenges. It never was. The bill, as you read it, says nothing about Sharia law. But when we talk about it now, I said, once you get it clear, talk about it. It's no Sharia law. And in Florida and in Texas, Governor Abbott and Governor DeSantis openly says what it is. And our representative in Congress, Representative Fulcher, says the same thing. No Sharia law. So there's some out there saying it out loud, but the way we did it in committee, the way we did it on the bill, there's nothing in the official record of the legislature that says anything about Sharia. So they can't use that to go after our bill. We are very, very specific and careful about that. We should be good to go.
Yeah. About the issue of foreign, I guess someone could argue whether it is a foreign matter about a call to prayer issue or not. Hopefully, we've got enough legal language in there to deal with that if there's anything that might come up. But in the Constitution, there is no there's no call for the right to this type of a call to prayer either, is there? Representative Hill, there is no in our U.S. Constitution, there is no right to a call to prayer of any kind.
You locked up there for a sec, sir. You back?
I'll edit that out.
Yeah.
So, Representative Hill, are you aware of anything in our U.S. Constitution where it gives a right to a call to prayer of any kind?
Well, it does not. And this, I spent most of my adult life in the Middle East and fought wars over there and learned a lot about Islam, probably, more than most people. But what I really clearly say is Islam is a political system shielded by a religion. If you put it in that context, what Sharia law is very political. It's not necessarily religious, and they hide it. They hide behind that, and that's the thing. It's all political, and we actually find ourselves submitting with the Muslim apologists, I call them, and they're thinking, oh, we're protecting religion. No, you're not. You're allowing a foreign government, a foreign entity, a foreign law to intercede into our constitutional law. It is not religious. If you put it in that context and understand it. Anybody who understands Islam understands that.
Okay, so that's what you're saying. It's happening with the Boise City. They're making they're making it the case that this is it's foreign to the Constitution, because there's nothing in the Constitution that says that we have a right to fly a gay pride flag.
Well, here's the key that I answered when the Democrats got on me in the House. They said, well, they should have the right to do that. And I go, no, they do not. The government does not have First Amendment rights. The people have First Amendment rights to speak against their government. The government does not have a First Amendment right to do as they please. That's why they should be neutral. So in this case, this was an expression, well, hey, she's trying to protect that under her personal liberty of free speech. That is not your right. And if they put the MAGA flag out there, you could imagine the ACLU, how they respond. What's the difference between the MAGA flag and the pride flag in terms of political and ideological? They're the same. So suddenly they would be screaming bloody murder. They're very hypocritical on this and what's appropriate. And that's not appropriate. And that is you could call it a religious flag, the pride flag, because those people, the hardcores that came after me, that is, when we took this flag down, it's like someone taking my American flag down. That's the way they act. That is their flag. That's their identity. That's who they are. They don't identify under the American flag. And the hardcores almost feel that way. You go in North Boise, there's no American flags out there. Hardly ever. You see lots of pride flags, American flags. You're not welcome in that community if you fly an American flag because you're bad. You're a Republican or something. That's kind of what's happened over the last few years. And that's the way they think. That's why I wanted to get this out. I wanted us to reunite under the American flag. Diversity is not a strength. Diversity is chaos. Diversity and unity is a strength. This is what I learned in the military. I love Pete Hegseth. When I was in the military, and I just retired 3 years ago, we were collapsing upon that whole DEI thing. It's the most toxic, ridiculous thing you could possibly do in the military. I'm a hardcore warrior, and I actually have the flag on my arm. That's why I wanted to go short sleeve to show that's how I go through life. And everyone clearly knows where I sit. And I saw what was happening, and it was devastating. Diversity is our strength. No, it's not. We all have the same uniform. We should all have the same hair. We all look the same because we all have the same similar mission. And diversity of thought that's it's united. That's a strength. But diversity for sake of diversity is chaos, is balkanization, everything you want to say that's disruptive. And the Marxists, again, want that because the more diversity and identities you have and more victims and all that is the chaos they want. The chaos of all these different identity groups and everybody's a victim and everybody's at each other's throats. It's working. That works. In the military, we stopped that nonsense, got back, and boy, everyone's gung-ho and wants to join the Navy again, wants to come back. When we do that Pledge of Allegiance, every day. Everybody stands up, Democrats, everybody, everyone recognizes that ritual. It's critical for us as a nation. And so all this diversity, DEI is the most toxically Marxist, horrible thing we could possibly apply in this country. And I'm glad we're shutting it down. And it's getting shut down corporate and everywhere else. And I'm thrilled.
So it sounds like Representative Hill, this idea of diversity is a lot like randomness, which would be the lack of structure. Can you comment on that issue?
Yeah, a lack of structure is, if when I was on the education committee and we had all these presentations and all this, and I came in front of the committee and said, you know what the problem is in our schools? It's discipline, structure, and consistency. And so, say, oh, well, this is not the military. And I said, well, you know what? If we were more like a boot camp, we'd be better, like it was when I was in school. We had paddled and we had prayers and all kinds of different things. It was structured, but it sure was a lot better. We're not going to have that anymore. I get that. But structure and discipline and randomness is not good. And we being united in a ritual like the Pledge of Allegiance, if that's just one thing we do to unite ourselves. And that's what, church and religion's always been, that part of a community. One thing I like to address, and when people ask why I ran for this, I spent 37 years as a fighter pilot warrior and fought lots of wars and all that kind of stuff. And that was who I was. And I got in this business because what I saw during the Biden years when I was in the military was very distressing. It was the cultural impact of what the kids were like coming into the military, from DEI just to the core of the individuals coming. 75% of our youth can't even qualify to be coming to the military for multiple reasons. That's ridiculous. And then the patriotism rate that was 95% when I was a kid is in the 30% now with these people in their 20s. That's just devastatingly bad. How are you going to hold a country together? And it's all this disruptive things we see culturally, from the flags to the transgender and the gender training and all this grooming. The transgender agenda, it didn't exist 10 years ago, and suddenly it's this massive catastrophe of all these kids having all these issues. No, that is a grooming event. That is not a real thing. They're grabbing these kids and, hey, you don't feel good about yourself, you're transgender. No, that's not true. They're creating this beast. It literally 30 years ago, never even heard of it. So how come it's so rampant now? That is a cultural phenomenon. It's not biological or anything else. It is a cultural creation. So we are trying to pull all this together, from getting rid of DEI and all this disruptive distraction that's killing our education and throwing our kids off. Men can't be masculine anymore because that's bad. Well, no, we got to stop that. We need masculine men. We need feminine women. We need to have roles, and everyone's equal, and all that is great. But trying to do what we're doing now is not going to work, and it's going to crush this country. And that's my concern. That's why I got into politics, because I didn't want to just watch this stuff implode around me. I want to do something about it.
Well, it's great to be able to visit with you on these core issues regarding what impacts our constitutional freedoms in America. And for more information, is there a special website you would like to promote?
I don't have a particular website. They can come to my Facebook and look up Ted Hill for Idaho, and you'll see all my Sharia law and my flag bills. I don't have any specific things, but I always publish through there. I have a full-time guy who works on all my stuff. So I get a lot of stuff. I get a lot of good content online. They call Ted Hill for Idaho. They'll find some good stuff, and I will point them in the right direction. I don't have a website or a legislative point besides that.
Thank you for sharing these important issues and these concerns impact our Constitution. And I will look forward to talking with you more about, anything that might develop regarding flag bill issues, maybe across the country or here locally. But look forward to talking with you again. And of course, people can, look on a state legislative website, Idaho legislature website. They'll see information about you there as well.
Yes, sir. That's true.
I set my rainbow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. It shall come about when I bring clouds over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the clouds, and I will compassionately remember my covenant, which is between me and you, and every living creature of all flesh. And never again will the water become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the rainbow is in the clouds and I look at it, I will solemnly remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, "This rainbow is the sign of the covenant, solemn pledge, binding agreement, which I have established between me and all living things on the earth." Is this the real rainbow? Let's find out. The pride flag has 6 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, and violet. That doesn't look like the real rainbow to me. Hey Google, how many colors are in the rainbow?
There are 7 colors in the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet.
Is this the real rainbow? As the appearance of the rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the surrounding radiance. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory and brilliance of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell face down, and I heard a voice of one speaking. At once I was in a special communication with the Spirit. And behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. And he who sat there appeared like the crystalline sparkle of a jasper stone, and the fiery redness of a sardius stone. And encircling the throne there was a rainbow that looked like the color of an emerald.